Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the state's top health official will tell us about the flu season, which is underway in Arizona. And best-selling author Bill Bryson talks about his celebrated writing career and his latest book. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Backers of a move to repeal a controversial new election law have learned that over 95% of signatures submitted last month have cleared the first round of verification by the Secretary of State's office. The final determination on whether or not the referendum to repeal the election law makes next year's ballot is expected by the end of the month. State Department of Health Services recently confirmed this season's first case of the flu. That means it's time to talk vaccinations and other ways to stay healthy in the coming months. Arizona Health Services Director Will Humble joins me now to talk about the flu season. How you doing?
Good evening. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, sure, we do it just about every year, one way, shape, or form here. We got our first confirmed case. Talk to us. How old? How serious? What happened?
Yeah, a couple cases, both of them kids. One down in Pima County, one up here in Maricopa County. I think both are going to be okay, but it's this sort of sign that we're embarking on our flu season. Doesn't mean we're going to start peaking in October like we did in 2009 with the pandemic, but it's the time to start thinking about getting your flu shot. And there are so many different ways you can get your flu shot these days, you know, at pharmacies and so forth. And there's more different kinds of vaccines than there's ever been before.
I take it these patients were not vaccinated.
Well, they weren't vaccinated, and it's so early in the flu season, very few people are. Only
Yes.
6% of Arizonans are vaccinated so far, which is, you know, it's so early that, you know, that's not a disappointing number.
Well, when is the optimal time for vaccination?
Any time between now and, say, Thanksgiving is a great time. What we focus on is making sure that people do it whenever it's convenient. So if you're in the pharmacy, you have a few extra minutes, you're with your kids, pharmacists can give the flu vaccine now to anybody 6 and over. So that's a great time. So seize the moment whenever you have a little bit of extra time. If you're a parent, if you're a senior, seize the moment, get the vaccine whenever it's convenient. You know, it's never too early and it's never really too late, but get it done.
Let's get some parameters here. The flu season in Arizona extends from when to when?
Well, it's kind of like the monsoon season. You know how they kind of
Sure.
changed it on us? They don't use dew point anymore. We sort of talk about October through March or April as the flu season, but it really peaks at a different time every year. So in 2009, it was going gangbusters in October. Usually, the flu season really gets going after the holidays in, say, January or February, but it throws us a curve, and we have flu seasons that kick off around Thanksgiving too. So you can never really predict.
Why does it seem like it always hits this time of year? Is it the weather? Is it people congregating together more? I mean, how come we don't have a flu season in July?
You know, they've studied that over and over, and there's, believe it or not, there's really no definitive answer exactly why. It's definitely seasonal all across the world. It definitely peaks in the winter season, both in the northern and southern hemisphere. Interestingly, in the tropics, you see influenza going back and forth all year long without a season. So they have similar numbers of cases, but it's spread throughout the whole year. So it seems like it gets its host one way or the other no matter where you live.
So what are you looking at for a flu season this time around? And how do you forecast such a thing?
Yeah, so the good news is, here's how we forecast. We look at the southern hemisphere's flu season. So they're just finishing their winter just like we're starting into our fall. And so we look at the circulating strains in, say, Argentina, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, southern hemisphere countries that have good surveillance programs. And then you craft the North American vaccine so that it matches those strains that are circulating in the southern hemisphere. And the good news this year is that the strains that are in this year's flu vaccine, the antigens they're called, are a perfect match for what's circulating in the southern hemisphere. That means when you get your flu shot, it's going to match, most likely, what starts going around whenever flu season really kicks in the next month or 2 or 3.
How many strains are we talking about here?
Most of the vaccines have 3 antigens, which mean it covers you for 3 different kinds of influenza viruses. This year, there's a new vaccine that's just on the market that has 4 antigens in it. So, so most of them are 3, but one of them's 4. You asked, Ted, so I'm telling you.
Well, what happens if I take the 3 and the 4th one winds up clobbering me?
Most likely, if you get the vaccine with 3, you'll be covered. The vaccine that has the 4th antigen, it's a B strain, which usually doesn't cause epidemic numbers of cases. That's usually the A strains. So short answer is, no matter what kind you get, you're better off than you are without a shot.
Okay. I know that a lot of folks in Arizona think that they just fine without a shot. Talk to us about vaccination rates and where you see the most coverage, where you don't see as much coverage, and again, the communal aspect of all this, because you're not getting a shot just for you, you're
Right.
getting a shot so you're not a typhoid Ted out there.
Right. Well, I mean, so that's the real reason we have public health vaccination programs is not to protect individually you or me, or it's to protect communities of people. And the more people you get vaccinated, the harder it is for the virus to find a host. And so what we really try to do is to increase those vaccination rates across the board, especially amongst those folks that spread the virus the most, and that's kids, especially elementary school kids and kids in preschool. So our focus year in and year out is to really get those vaccination rates up in the toddler and elementary school population. Seniors, by the way, are pretty good at getting their vaccine on their own. They're highly motivated. In fact, we're above 70%, I think, last year for seniors. So seniors we don't have to focus on them so much. They know it's a good idea for them. The harder challenge is getting young families to recognize that this is about community protection, not just to protect your individual kid.
But there are concerns out there. There are things on the internet that you read. There are stories that have been told. There are case studies where some folks react poorly, or there might be something in the vaccine that they're not crazy about. Talk to us about that.
Well, there's no shortage of things that you can read on the internet, and most of it's hogwash. The truth is that flu vaccines are among the safest, highest return on investment public health tools that we have. Very, very safe, protects people from a pretty serious disease, and it protects communities of people. The biggest side effect that is sore arm, which, okay, so a sore arm, it's not a big deal. When you consider the payback is a much healthier community.
Okay, so in terms of the state, again, I asked this before, are there areas where vaccination rates are higher, areas where they're not so high, and you need to get your work done there?
Yeah, so let's transition off the flu for just a second. One of the things that we're concerned about right now is this pertussis or whooping cough epidemic that's really been going on for the last couple of years in Arizona. And what we see is a trend towards increasing cases, especially in those communities that have low vaccination rates. And what we generally see, by the way, are that high-income zip codes are the zip codes that are most likely to have the lowest vaccination rates for those childhood vaccines.
Interesting.
Parents are choosing to intentionally not vaccinate their kids. Again, something that they saw on the internet, et cetera. So it's an increasing problem. It's called vaccine exemptions. In other words, where parents intentionally don't vaccinate their kids and sign the exemption form for school. And what we're seeing is some problems in certain zip codes. Sedona, for example, is the zip code in Arizona with the lowest vaccination rate for little kids. That's not because they're uninsured, Ted.
Yeah.
It's because the parents are choosing not to vaccinate their kid. And by the way, it doesn't just put their kid at risk, it puts the entire community at risk, especially special needs kids who might be in those schools.
Oh, interesting. All right. And real quickly, you talked about whooping cough. What are you seeing? Is that especially bad this year? It kind of sounds like it's not doing too well.
It's been bad for about 2 years. This is the longest epidemic of whooping cough that I've seen in my 25 years or so in public health. It's usually pretty cyclical. It comes and goes, but it's pretty persistent this time. It's not all across the state. Like I said, it's in pockets. Colorado City is another pocket that we have of a lot of whooping cough going around. So the solution is real simple. It's just keep your kid on their vaccination schedule. And if you're anybody, go out and get your flu shot. You're just doing the right thing. do what you would want everyone else to do.
And basically, you can get these things at the corner. You can get them all over the place. And and again, these are the right ones you're getting. It's not some fly-by-night sort of a...
Yeah, well, it's super convenient now. It used to be you had to kind of find your flu shot, make an appointment with your doctor, etc. Pharmacies do it now. And there's 13 or 14 different choices of different kinds of vaccines and a really good supply. So it's not hard to find anymore.
All right. Will, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Beside State Route 90, about 12 miles from Mexico, is a monument to Fort Huachuca. Today, a high-tech training facility, but also a key outpost in Arizona history. Founded in 1877 as a temporary camp, Camp Huachuca protected miners, ranchers, and travelers against Apache attack. After Geronimo's surrender in 1886, the fort protected the border, and in 1915 supported General Blackjack Pershing's expedition against Pancho Villa. A statue at the fort celebrates black soldiers who served here first in 1892, then continuously since 1913, when the 10th Cavalry, nicknamed by Indians the Buffalo Soldiers, were sent here. In 1942, the 1st All-Black Division was stationed here. Fort Huachuca has a long and distinguished record of support for the people of Arizona.
Best-selling author Bill Bryson has written a number of enthusiastically received books on travel, history, science, and language. Bryson's latest effort looks at the summer of 1927, a season that seemed to push America into world leadership by way of Charles Lindbergh, Babe Ruth, and motion picture talkies. I recently spoke with Bill Bryson about his work and the summer of 27. Bill Bryson, it's good to have you on Arizona Horizon.
I'm delighted to be here, Ted. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. I got to ask you, just for starters, you're a kid from Des Moines, Iowa. How does a kid from Des Moines wind up the chancellor of a United Kingdom university? What's going on here?
It takes a few kind of strange turns along the way. I went to Europe in 1972, hitchhiking around. Ended up getting a job at the end of the summer, totally out of the blue. Met a girl who was a student nurse at this hospital I was working at. Fell for her, fell for England, and that's the rest. It's a long, long story, but ended up living in England and unexpectedly and making my life and my career over there.
When you look back, was there something maybe in the U.S. that was lacking, or was it just all those
attractions?
No,
it was nothing to do with kind of any sort of rejection of America or anything like that. It was much more of a, just as this new unexpected opportunity came along. I mean, I really liked England. I really like still, even after all these years, I like being a foreigner. It's kind of a privileged position. And it's not at all hard to live in England. I mean, I still come home a lot. America is, even though I haven't really lived here very much for 40 years, it's still home. I mean, we were talking about the World Series, and I'm really just as interested in that kind of thing as I was when I lived here. And this is my 5th trip back to America this year, so I'm not really away from the country that much.
And you're still not a British citizen, are you?
No.
Ever? No plans?
Because I'm getting older, and because they tell me that one of these days, at some point I will die, I really ought to get my paperwork in order, and just for inheritance purposes and things like that. So at some point I have to. But the problem is they have a really, really tough test you have to take, and they ask you questions like how many members of Parliament are there, and nobody. I mean, British people can't answer that, but nobody knows. Just like how many members of the House of Representatives are there? I don't know,
right,
a few
right.
hundred, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just those kind of questions. You have to study really hard to pass the test.
Compare. You see, obviously, you've been on both sides of the ocean here, and a unique perspective in many respects. Compare culture, curiosity. Could you be Bill Bryson if you had never gone to Europe?
Well, it would be, I mean, I would be a different Bill Bryson. I mean, I think I'd still, you know, basically what you see now is I'm sure I would, you know, have thinning hair and a pot belly and, you know, all those kinds of things. But it has obviously affected my life a lot. By living in another country, it opened a lot of doors for me. I mean, I grew up with a real strong sense of wanderlust, which is, I think, you know, growing up in Iowa, it seemed to me that the rest of the world was a lot more exciting than Iowa, and that the bright lights, you know, were elsewhere, and I wanted to go and see them and experience them. And so, you know, when I had a chance to settle in Europe, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. And I still kind of feel that way. I mean, I still feel privileged to be able to have a life that is kind of rooted in two different countries.
That wanderlust led to the travel books, which you are very well known for. When you write a travel book and you are wandering, do you write as you wander, or do you wait to come home and then write?
Well, I take notes a little bit as I wander, but most of it is done when I come home. That's, you know, I have the writing is. It's too time consuming to do it when you're on the road, and it would interfere with actually having the experiences necessary to kind of gather material. So I do most of the writing after the fact.
When you leave, like on the Appalachian Trail, and you decide to take that particular journey, do you leave knowing, I'm going to write about this, or do you leave going, I'm going to take a walk in the woods, maybe I'll write about it?
I knew I was going to write about it, but every single day I was thinking, I don't know how I don't know how we're going to get a book out of this, because, you know, nothing was happening. We were out hiking the Appalachian Trail. I mean, we were leading very full days, but we were just walking. It is the most repetitive activity you can imagine. And for a long time, it didn't seem as if we were doing anything interesting. We just getting up in the morning, walking all day, and then kind of falling into sleeping bags at night. And I thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to get a book out of this.
How did you get a book out of that?
Well, partly because the guy I went walking with, Stephen Katz, was a spectacularly eccentric fellow, and he made a big difference. And then we started meeting people along the way, some of them colorful, some of them just did us kindnesses, and then the Appalachian Trail itself is a fantastic thing. And, you know, we're so lucky in this country to have this eastern woodlands. You know, I mean, you go out there and you're in right now you're in the same environment that, you know, as Daniel Boone would have been in, or that, you know, George Washington was riding through. So it's like time travel. You know, you can go out into the woods and it's just like it was 200 years ago.
It's beautiful back there. Now, and you're a travel writer. You're also, you've written memoirs. You've written about science. You've written about history. What was it? The short history of just about everything, or what?
That's almost right. It's a short history of nearly everything.
How does one sit down and say, I think I'll write about everything, or almost everything?
Well, that was a kind of crazy one. I was, and again, I was wondering at times when I was doing that, what am I doing here? What's happening here? But it was, you know, the whole idea of that book was that I had always been fascinated by science, but I was terrible at science at school. And I thought, there's got to be some level at which I can engage personally with science and understand it without doing all the equations and theorems and everything. But there's got to, you know, because science explains everything. It tells us who we are, how we got here, where we're going, you know, what we need to do if we want to get where we want to go. All those things. Science is, you know, it's hugely important to every single thing in our lives. And I thought, well, there's got to be some level at which I can interact with it.
And with that, I want to get to the writing process for you. First of all, how do you write? And when you were writing the science, I want to get to 1927 here in a second, your most recent book. But when you write the short history of just about everything, are you writing for someone? Do you see that person out there? Is it someone on your shoulder? Who are you writing for?
Well, I do try to be conversational. You know, I don't try to be like stern and formal. I do try to be as kind of approachable, as find the voice that makes me sound as friendly and as, you know, I don't want this to be an ordeal for anybody. It should be a pleasant experience for us both. So I do work really hard on trying to get the tone right. And then once you get the tone right, if you've got all the information, then it's not so hard. But it is actually quite hard. But it's not. The hard part really is getting that kind of first paragraph down and getting your voice right.
Yeah, and now the latest book deals with 1927. Why?
It's all about the summer of 1927, and it turns out, I didn't know this, but I found kind of by accident, the summer of 1927 was the most eventful, magical summer that any nation has ever had, certainly in peacetime. And it was just one thing after another. You had Charles Lindbergh fly the Atlantic, which was a hugely joyous event for America and the world. Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs, and so it gave me an opportunity to bring a lot of baseball into it. You also had, it was probably the most exciting baseball season ever. You had lots of other things like Sacco and Vanzetti, these notorious anarchists were executed that summer. That was a really big, rather dark story, but a really big story. You had, they filmed The Jazz Singer, the first talking picture, which transformed popular entertainment. Started carving Mount Rushmore, just one thing after another. It was just kind of just dizzyingly eventful summer.
And America leading the way in a fashion that, do you think Americans knew they were leading the way as all this was going on that summer?
They were just discovering it. It was a really interesting thing. I mean, America had been unquestionably the richest and most important nation on the planet for some time, at least since the First World War, but probably pretty much for the whole of the 20th century. But it didn't have that confidence. It didn't see itself. It still looked to Europe for leadership. When economic decisions were to be made, it was the governors of the Bank of England, the Bank of France, the Reichsbank that made these decisions. America kind of followed. And the summer of 1927 was just the period when it was suddenly kind of discovering itself. It was really, if America were a kid, it was like it was 18 years old and it was just about to leave home. It was growing up. It was just about to burst out on its own. And you really, really see that happening in the years that followed. I mean, if you just think about kind of how America was in World War II, it was our war. I mean, once we entered, we took charge. There was no question that Eisenhower was going to be in charge of the invasion and everything. America had suddenly gotten, just in a decade, it had gotten really, really confident. And a lot of the things that happened in the summer of 1927, not least Charles Lindbergh's flight, really gave America that confidence.
And yet, with that confidence, with all of that achievement, way out there in the future is this Great Depression just waiting to happen. When you researched and wrote the book, was that future always in mind, or were you, just like everyone else in America at the time, reveling in the good times?
Well, it's a very interesting question, Ted, because of course I had the advantage over all the people I was writing about, that I did know how it turned out. I know, I know everything. And so what I tried to do when I was writing the book was to try and lock myself into that summer, into that moment, and pretend I didn't know what was around the corner. Try to imagine what was it like for the people living through that summer. And obviously, you can only do that up to a point, because, I mean, I do know how it turns out. I do know that the Great Depression is just coming. But I did try to imagine, what was it like not to know that the Great Depression was coming, or not to know that Babe Ruth wouldn't hit 65 home runs the next year, or that, and just to think about these things kind of from their perspective. And that was a really interesting exercise for me.
So with everything that happened, I think the talkies, the motion picture talkies, I think that was, in retrospect, absolutely huge in the way that America, even today, exports entertainment, exports film. We exported ourselves with that. Well,
and I mean, the really important thing that never gets thought about is that once the pictures started talking, once there were voices, it was American voices the world was hearing. And that made a huge difference. I mean, suddenly it is, Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, and America really seemed a lot more important because we were kind of so dominating the culture. I mean, there was lots of other stuff that went along with it. We dominated popular music, we dominated theater, we increasingly dominated literature. But movies is the key. The reason that everybody wanted to come to America was Hollywood.
So was this a fun book to write? Did you enjoy yourself?
I had the time of my life. It was the most fun I've ever had writing a book, yeah.
And with all of these books you've written, again, science, history, language, travel, again, do you consider yourself in any particular genre heavier than other genres?
Not really. I mean, all I've ever seen myself as is just a newspaper man who's now writing books. I mean, what I do is the same thing that you do every day, which is, you get assignments, you get a new challenge, and mine are now over a slightly longer scale. But I grew up as working on newspapers, and every day you went in and it was a new kind of assignment every day, and so I'm just going from one assignment to another. But instead of taking a day, I'm now taking 3 or 4 or 5 years on it. But it's still the same thing. And what I really like is that freedom of movement, just not being locked into a single thing, which I'm sure you would say is one of the things that most excites you about the kind of job you do. It's different every day.
Indeed, indeed. Last question, though. Have you ever had to bail? Was there everything you just started on and just said, this isn't working?
Mercifully, no, but I did think I was going to do that with a walk in the woods for about the first month. I really did think, this is never going to happen.
Well, I'm glad it didn't happen, and congratulations on the success of yet another wonderful book. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.